We've got the Crusaders taking on the Drua in Christchurch. Injuries to report on this one. We've got Mitch Drummond was injured in the warm-up and was pulled from the game, which saw a very young Louis, what was his name? Louis something or other, started for...
Yeah, Louis something or other.
Yeah, so that's just incredibly disrespectful. So, but he's 20. I think he's 22 or something. He certainly held his own, didn't look out of place. He was very, very good, but we don't know if Mitch Drummond will be back or not, or what.
Louis Chapman.
Louis Chapman. Yeah, there you go. Shout out Louis. Yeah, we don't know if Drummond will be back or not, but you'd expect if he's available, he'll be starting. And for the Drua, we had Leone Rotosolia was subbed at half time. Don't know if we got any more details on that, but we think that was for an injury reason. And Josefo Marci did an MCL, so we'll not be seeing him, you'd expect.
Yeah, he looked pretty uncomfortable, tried to play on and just wasn't able to. So, we obviously hope that he's going to be fit because he's such a good player, such an impactful player for them. I guess the like for like is they've got Apostolomir Botta, who, if he can get into a bit of form, is a fantastic player in his own right, but would be a huge out. The Crusaders, you would think Ethan Blackadder's has pretty much been cleared, I believe, for this week for his calf finally. And the other big one for them is what they're going to do around the front row. And Ollie Jaeger has missed the last couple of weeks. He had a big cut on his knee that got infected. So he's been very unwell with that. So I actually think it's a pretty big ask for him to get back after 2 weeks. It could cost him a bit longer. He might be out for a week or two yet, but you never know how quickly these things bounce back. Maybe it wasn't too severe. Never great, but he's a potential in as well.
Yep, and no one else really returning for the Drua, except, as you said, Vota. We haven't seen a lot of him. He hasn't been injured, but just we might see him come in. So, last matchup to this one, it's worth pointing out. It was in Fiji. I think that game was in Lautoka. The Crusaders won by 1 point.
Nope.
Not the home match. The home team won. Fiji in Drua.
How good their memory?
First major scalp of the season against the Crusaders.
I love that our notes say Drua, but Kagi just immediately went, that can't be right.
No, the way it says in the notes is that it's Crusaders versus Drua. So, oh, wow, I did. Okay, I got it wrong. You're right. Sorry, I take it back. But yeah, that's right. That was the first home game, and that was the first big scalp that they took. You're right. March 11th. And how good was that? So, with the Drua certainly know it's possible. They won't have their 16th man there, the home crowd, but yeah, it'll be an interesting one. So, look,
I think the big one here, guys, is that it's a completely different Crusaders team. That was at the start of the year where they were shorter of everyone. There's only, I think it's 6 players in the first 15 that were there last time they played. Tamati Williams, Dogrol Barrett, Sam Whitelock, Tom Christie, and Braden Ennell. Every other player will be different. Like, it is chalk and cheese to the team that they managed to sneak past. So, I mean, it's a big ask to change that. And I think the biggest one here was probably the bloke with the most to gain from the Crusaders is probably Jack Goodhue for me. Yep. He hasn't been so important to this side for about 3 years, I don't reckon, since David Havili basically shifted to inside centre and made the position his own. His role at 12 in this next 3 weeks, he could get himself back in the All Blacks conversation. It's that important for him.
Yeah, look, I think it's massive. David Havili came in from fullback and we just went, this guy's there just mining the jersey for Goodhue, even though he was an amazing fullback. Will Jordan comes in, Havili just evolved his game significantly well at that 12, and we haven't seen a lot of Goodhue, but Goodhue, phenomenal defender. He's good with ball in hand. We haven't seen the best of him in the last couple of years, and I think we're going to see a little bit more of a rise, hopefully, in him because he's got a lot of footy left in those legs. Another man who seemingly has a lot of footy left in his legs is John Arfola. He's not allowed to play finals. Is that right? Because he signed on so late. I thought all he had to do was play one game. But how does this work out, boys?
Did you write that in, Harry? I was the same as Nelson. I thought he could play if he's
He can't. No. I think he signed too late in the season, so he's not allowed to. I think it was potentially the same with, I'm not sure about the Force guys, but yeah, John O'Farrell cannot play. So, I mean, obviously Ollie Jaeger becomes even more important because if Kershaw, Sykes, Martin's at loose head, And that means Tamati Williams is stuck by himself as the only real. He's not really experienced, but experienced tight head. It's a big drop down for them, and particularly with how good the Drua scrums come along.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I just want to say about John Afar, I think last week was his 497th first-class rugby game. So Devo that he's not going to get another 2, but I think he will because he signed on with the Bay of Plenty for an NPC season. So he's going to get there eventually. But
imagine he could have played finals in his 500th game, top-class game was in the grand final.
Oh, mate, how good. But no, look, I think you're right. Look, there's certainly they're scraping the barrel for Dev, but they did get Ruben O'Neill from the Chiefs, who, whilst he's a youngster, is he's certainly quite a good prop. So they've got the likes of Seb Calder, Ruben O'Neill. Who else have they got? I don't know, but it just means there's a lot on Tamati's shoulders. You know what I mean? So he's played a hell of a lot of minutes this season. And
he's had a rest at the back end of the year, thankfully.
He has, exactly. So
didn't he just go to the bench once? Didn't he?
No. When 2 weeks ago, John O'Farrell's first game, they dumped him out of the 23 completely. Guys, we'll keep pushing on though. Blackadder should be back. That pushes surely Scott Barrett back into the locks. Quinton Strange back onto the bench. I think that's a much better balance for the side, and it means, no matter what, in my eyes, Christian Leo Willie stays in the back row.
Yep. Leo Willie at 8, Tom Christie at 7, and that's a great balance there with Blackadder, you're right. And that leaves probably Strange on the bench, Sione Havili as well, I'd say. Unless we could possibly see Sione Havili start ahead of Leo Willie, that's possible, but I don't think so. So
you could for the experience factor alone, but I think off what we've seen recently, Leo Willie's the guy that they're putting in that jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Noah Hotham, he didn't play the last couple of weeks with the New Zealand under-20s playing Australia. We had Drummond pulled last week, which I've already touched on. We have no idea. Willie Hines, Harry, do you know anything about Willie Hines' availability, or has he just not been in and around it?
Well, no, he was injured, weeks and weeks ago, but literally nothing's been said about him for a long time. He injured his calf in the warm-up for round 10. So what's that now? 6 or 7 weeks. I think he's actually surely a good chance, unless it was one of the most massive calf tears going around. So, I think he's a possibility based off that timeline alone. But, they obviously didn't play him last week, so he mustn't have been available. And Noah Hotham, was playing under 20s last week, so I reckon he'll just slide back in at starting 9 if they need him to.
Yeah, Willie Hines, he's an old man, mate. 36. Injuries take a little bit longer to come back from, but if he's half a chance, mate, he'll be frothing to be back there. Dallas McLeod, we think he's still going to lock down that 14 jersey?
I'm still not convinced by him, to be honest. Like, I've liked him. I think he's had a really, really good year, but I'm not convinced by him as a winger. I think he's a stopgap solution for them. I think Macca Springer's probably been a far better pure winger for them, and that's where I would go if I can't settle down Malani Nanai. But I'm assuming that's not on the cards for them.
Maybe they've been saving him for the finals all year. They've just been saving up, settle down.
He's been rested. He's on his own All Blacks resting protocol, similar to Akira Ioane.
He's only got 240 minutes in him for the season, so he's going to spread it out over these next 3 weeks.
Exactly.
But no, look, I think Springer as well. He was off with the under-20s, was he not? For me, he is a player that has had a crack there for them and finished really well when he's had that shot. McLeod, I'm a big fan. I think he's a very, very good player. I don't think he's a winger, but he's a very, very good player. And he'd be a very, very good player for them to have on the bench, covering centres and wing.
Yeah,
agreed. All right, well, let's talk about the Drua.
Guys, this is one of my big talking points for the week. Masaki, apart from having a fun name to say, he has been a revelation for the Fijian Drua since coming back through. Obviously injured to start the year, one of the experienced tight heads they brought back. I think the scrum for the Ndrua has completely changed since he came back into this side. Now, I'm conscious of the fact that the team that he destroyed last week were the Reds, who have been by far and away the worst scrum in the competition. But the last 2 weeks, he has been exceptional. And if there's one weakness in this Crusaders side, it's if Ollie Jager's not playing and they're having to field a very young prop. in Kershaw, Sykes, Martin. Mate, this is an opportunity, isn't it?
You'd have to think so.
Yeah, I think it is a funny one. He's come straight back in 2 weeks in a row now and looked very, very good. And geez, it was one of the clearest dominant scrum performance I have seen in many years, I think, because as soon as he walked off that field, the next scrum, the Reds drove, without changing their props, significantly drove the Drua scrum back. So he is a massive part of the scrum for them. And it's something that, the set piece is going to be humongous for this battle if they're going to stay in this match. And we know they can play loose. We know they can be destructive ball in hand, but they need to have possession and be able to hold possession throughout a match. And if you can't win your scrums, you're not going to be doing it. So he could be a very pivotal player for them this week.
Yeah, I don't think
Ken Avery, I would argue, the most pivotal.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, I don't think there's a team other than perhaps the Brumbies, more so than the Crusaders, where the importance of locking down your set piece is just paramount. I think they've showed it in a few games, particularly the one that stands out for me was the Crusaders' domination of the force, where they just got a penalty at every scrum, kicked for touch, a few rolling maul tries. I think that's the game Brodie McAllister got 3 rolling maul tries, just systematically tore them apart through the set piece. So that's going to be paramount for the Drua.
Here's my second one, guys. I don't think there's a second lock really to partner Nasilasila. Now I know they do have a couple of other locks in their squad that have been filling in, but there's no one that's the obvious starting lock that will do a great job. I think Thrikian Deveta has been out for a couple of weeks now. We think Ratui Salia is injured as well. I think they had Waka, the really young bloke, come through.
Can I cut in here? I was going to say, I've got an answer for you, and it's Tony Owaka, man. He had a ripper last week. Do you see that try he scored?
Yeah. He did, reaching out for the line. I thought he was very good, but here's why I don't think it should be him and why I would put him on the bench. I think Joe Tamani's shown he can play anywhere and is great no matter what he does. I put him at 5, and then that allows me to play. Obviously, we're playing the White Shark, and we're playing Vilive Miramira, that I've shown is their first choice open side at the moment. But Pidioni Salawa has been exceptional in the first half of the season. I believe he's fit and just not been selected. And Elia Tanakabata as well was absolutely unbelievable when he was starting. You would surely put one of those two in, Salawa at 7, moving Miramira to 6, or Tanakabata at blindside. And then that way you have the dynamism that the team, obviously thrives off. And then you can bring Waka as the young lock coming through later in the game.
I mean, 100%. I said this.
Yeah, sorry.
5 or 6 weeks. No problem. Sorry. I said this about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and they hadn't done it to that point. For some reason, I thought they had, and they hadn't done it to that point. It was just me and Cargie on the pod. And that week they started him at lock, and he did well at lock. I know he's not big, and he's not necessarily tall enough to be an international lock, but the way Fiji play, the fact that the scrum is pretty strong at the moment, I think they can definitely do it. And they gain so much around the paddock by having the Salawa, Miramira 6-7 for me. And then Tanaka Vata can come off the bench. And as you said, Waka or Wanga can come off the bench as well. And you've got a very good forward pack there.
We've got to remember as well, Miramira and Darren Alangi are both 192 centimetres tall. Like, they can all jump at the line out.
I was about to say, they don't actually lose anything in terms of the line out, because particularly if you did have Darren Alangi, Miramira and Salawa, even Salawa's quite tall, you know what I mean? They all are fantastic at the line out. So,
Harry, guess how tall Salawa is?
Salawa, 191. 192. 192.
There you go.
Hey, we've said this before. They're all the same bloody mold. They're all, tall enough to jump. They could probably cover lock if you need, but they're phenomenal around the paddock.
So, yeah, I agree. I think it's a case of since it probably doesn't matter, get your best players on the field and then bring your reinforcements in.
I've convinced you, have I, Craigs?
You've convinced me. You've sold me. Yep.
You jumped on board when you saw it that one time, didn't you, Craigs? I thought you said the next pod he could do it. Yeah.
I did. I do. I remember that now. But
guys, next one, the role of Caleb Munson, Teddy Teller. Obviously, they said picking them both last week, their reasoning to move Ravovo off to the wing was that they liked having the dual kicking options of the two of them, and then they were able to obviously try and play in the right side of the park. Is that something that they have to pursue in this game, particularly, obviously they might end up with Vota at outside centre as well, or can they just not afford to take that much kind of attacking firepower off their centre pairing?
I think you can't afford to take Ravovo out of the 12 jersey. Like, don't get me wrong, he had a great game at wing, but I just think he's been pivotal at in the 12 jersey. And yeah, I just think they have, plenty of players to play out wide. And I think we're going to kind of lead into it with Joe Sessi and Ravatamunda. But I think you got to play Ravovo at 12. I think you just got to pick one of the two 10s to play 10. And you're not going to be doing all that much crossfield kicking against the Crusaders. So I don't know.
I mean, for the matter of this match and then Drua at the moment is get your best players in the paddock. And it's not those two guys on there together. If you can have Vota cover the centres with over, that's amazing last year. We're already sliding into Ravatamunda at fullback with Ndrosesi. Maybe you have a Roni Sao on one wing. You have a really, really strong backline right across the field that are all offer threats, and they're going to need to be able to score points in this match. And it's not, yes, they need to be able to play at the right side of the field, but also, an aimless kick here or there, and they've all of a sudden, had a try or two scored against them. The Crusaders know how to score from anywhere as well. So they need to be able to secure their ball, and they need to be able to threaten ball in hand, be smart when they kick, but this is not a game where they need to kick non-stop. That's not necessarily how it has to happen. So I think you need to have your runners.
Yeah, very good point. I agree with all the above. And the other thing I was thinking was Frank Lomani has been doing a lot of box kicking. So they talked a lot about having those two guys on as kicking options, and then Lomani just kicks off the base anyway. So I don't think it's actually that necessary. Guys, before we get to the tip,
I was going to say on Lomani. Lomani he kicks off the base. I mean, Muntz missed, I think, 3 kicks, and then Lomani took over the goal kicking duty. Lomani just puts the whole team on his shoulders. You know what I mean? He does everything. But,
before we do the tips, guys, I can't believe we've gone through Crusaders games and not mentioned Richie Mo'unga or Will Jordan.
Yeah, what
happened?
I think it's just assumed knowledge.
We just know how, and I mean, we haven't mentioned another name, Harry, maybe on a wing, could be leaving, could be hugely dominant.
Mate, he's not the same as those two. Come on. All right.
How dare you, mate? Let's define Ganuku, mate. The most dominant force.
That is 3 absolute stars.
Anyway, the point is they've got a lot of good players. And that takes us to the tip, guys. I'll go first on this one. And surprisingly, I'm going to go with the Crusaders. I think they're going to get it done. I think that Ndrua might just get blown off the park. This is when the Crusaders machine just turns it on and they just start to blow teams away. The line's 21.5. I think that's actually probably pretty close to thereabouts. I might go Crusaders just to beat the line at 22.
I want to go the other way. I just off the back of a little bit of sloppiness from Crusaders last week. They started a little bit sloppy throughout the year. I don't think it's still the same well-oiled machine, but they have enough to easily get it done. But the Drua are going to turn up and grow an extra couple inches. So I'm going to say it'll be a little bit tighter than the line, and the Crusaders will probably get done by 17.
Very good. I'm going to say Crusaders by 15.